We are talking about bones, particularly the bones of the arms and the legs. And right now we're looking at the humerus. Those are the two images on the left side of the screen. And on the right side, we've got the radius and the ulna, and then we've got a close-up inset of the head of the ulna. Terrific. So we were talking about the humerus, and the humerus is one of the bones where you need to know 8 different parts of that bone. And we've already talked about a few of them. We've talked about the head. That's the head. That's the head. The head is always on the medial aspect of the humerus because that's how you're put together to make a shoulder joint, right? And then we talked about the greater and lesser tubercles. Tubercles, in anatomy terms, are small rounded bumps on a bone. We're going to learn tuberosities. Tuberosities are bigger, knobby things. They kind of look alike to me, quite frankly, but these are tubercles, so please remember, humerus has got tubercles. So the tubercles have got a greater tubercle and a lesser tubercle. The greater tubercle is lateral, so the opposite of the head of the humerus, and the lesser tubercle is anterior. I should have warned you, you were going to need all of those Lab 1 terms. Lateral means towards the sides, medial means towards the midline, anterior is towards the front, posterior is towards the back. Distal is farther away from the body, proximal closer to the body. Using all those terms. Okay, the deltoid tuberosity. The deltoid tuberosity you can only see very well from the front. This is the anterior view. And it's a little roughness right around in the middle of the humerus. And by the way, it's where this muscle, the deltoid, attaches to the humerus so that you can do that, right? This area right here, that's where your deltoid attaches. So when the deltoid shortens, the humerus goes up. Then we have got the distal aspect of the humerus. The distal aspect of the humerus has got some things that are confusing. Let's start with the simpler ones. The simpler ones are the epicondyles. Epicondyles are these areas that are on either side of your elbow. So when you feel your elbow like this, you put one finger on each side, you are feeling the epicondyles of your humerus. And the one that's closer to the middle, is the medial epicondyle, and the one towards the outside is the lateral epicondyle. When you're looking at a bone, how do you know which one is medial? It's on the same side as the head, always, okay? Then we've got this area called the trochlea and the capitulum, and now I need to explain some stuff to you. Gosh, do I have a picture of it? Darn it. All right. Let's go to our dissection. Go to our dissection. Okay. All right, now we are looking at the shoulder and arm. Hold on. Does it let me just look at the elbow, radius, and ulna? Let's look at that. Not loving that. Okay, the shoulder and arm. We're going to look at it from the front. Okay, we're looking at it from the front. All right, so here is the distal aspect of the humerus and the proximal aspect of the radius and the ulna. We're focusing right now on this bone, the ulna. And so this is as if someone is standing in front of you. Sorry, this arm, okay? So we're looking at this area right here. Do you see this little dip right here? When this person bends their elbow, the point right there would go into that little dip. So wouldn't it be smart if they named this dip and that point kind of the same thing so you could tell they go together? For example, you're putting something together and it says, place tab A in slot A, you would go, oh, that makes sense, right? Well, they did that. So this little dip on the front of the distal humerus is called the coronoid fossa. And so that little point is called the coronoid process, right? So if you look here on page 33, you'll see on the humerus, letter H is coronoid fossa, and on the ulna, letter B is the coronoid process. They didn't do that to make things harder. They did it to make it easier. You probably should just memorize that the coronoid fossa is the smaller one, and it is on the front, the anterior aspect of the distal humerus, and the coronoid process of the ulna is going to fit into it. All right? Now, they did the same thing. Oops, wrong thing. They did the same thing on the back. They did the same thing on the back. So do you see this big bump here? That big bump is called the olecranon, or the olecranon process. And the olecranon fossa is actually a bigger hole in the back of the bone. Let me show you back on our PowerPoint. All right, we're back. The coronoid fossa was the little dip that the coronoid process, hold on. Okay, so the coronoid fossa is this little dip on the front of the bone, and when the bone is bent, this little thing, the coronoid process, fits into it. It's really hard to see the coronoid process there, but when I bend my elbow, this dives into that. When I straighten my elbow, this, the olecranon process, dives into that, the olecranon fossa. But we're not done. This little groove that connects the olecranon fossa gets connected to the coronoid fossa by a groove, and that groove is known as the trochlea. And the trochlea fits right on there. They fit right together like if this is my ulna and this is the end of my humerus, they fit like together like that. And so this is the trochlear notch. So if you notice on the humerus, F is trochlea, on the ulna, C is trochlear notch, on the humerus, G is olecranon fossa, on the ulna, A is olecranon process, and that's because everything fits together, right? Let's see. Oh, I think I show you that with real bones moving in the video. So look for that. Did we do it all? No, the one thing we haven't done, the capitulum. Capitulum means little bald head, and it does kind of look like a guy's little bald head. And this little bald head is to the lateral side of the trochlea. You'll know that this is the trochlea. I know it doesn't look like anything because it connects to the coronoid fossa, right? So that's the trochlea. This over here, laterally, that is where the other bone of your forearm called the radius, that's where its head attaches to the capitulum. And the way the radius attaches to the capitulum allows your arm to do that. No, your arm can do this, right? We can flip over our hand. By the way, your dog's hand is always like this. Your dog cannot do this. And probably whenever we flip our hand over to give him a treat, they probably are like, ooh, that creeps me out, the way his arm moves. But the reason we can do that and they can't is for us, the head of the radius forms a pivot joint with the capitulum. All right, so the only thing we haven't done on these big bones of the arm are the styloid processes. At the end of the radius and at the end of the ulna, there are these little pointy parts that are called styloid processes. A stylus was a writing implement back in the day, and they thought it looked like they could write with it, which is creepy, but that's why they called it the styloid process. A whole lot to learn here, right? You can do it, but first, learn to recognize the bones, right? The humerus has got a ball on it, different from the ball on the femur. But if you just see a ball, you've narrowed it down 50-50. The radius and the ulna. I like the ulna because the word ulna starts with the letter U, ulna. And this big notch thing here, the trochlear notch, looks like the letter U. So we will recognize that one. The radius, this head of the radius up here, That to me looks like a hockey puck or maybe like an eraser on a pencil. And if I see a straight, slender bone with an eraser or a hockey puck on one end, then I will know that I'm looking at the radius. All right, now we're down to the wrist. The bones of the wrist are called the carpal bones or carpals. The wrist is known as the carpus. So, and would you believe it? Every one of these bones, every one of these little bones, sorry, those are not little bones. Every one of those little bones has got their own name. They look like little tiny pebbles, right? You don't have to know their names. Yay! But you do have to know that they are carpals. Also, you need to recognize that these guys are called the metacarpals. Carpals, metacarpals. Metacarpals. The metacarpals make up your hand, okay? So metacarpal, metacarpal, metacarpal. This one on our thumb, this big one down here, metacarpal. They are numbered, starting with the thumb, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. By the way, the bones of the foot are also numbered, starting with the big toe. You gotta love that kind of symmetry. Now, what are the bones of the fingers called? They're all called phalanges. Really, they named every one of those guys a different name, but all of our finger bones are just called phalanges. Fine, whatever. But if I asked you, for example, where would you put a wedding ring? You would say you would put it on the proximal phalanx of the fourth digit of the left hand. So left hand, fourth digit, proximal phalanx, because proximal means closer to the body, distal means farther from, and middle is in the middle. By the way, the thumb only has got proximal and distal. It has no middle phalanx. All right, we will start with the pelvis and the leg in our next video.